Welcome to Sustainably Speaking Africa, a podcast about reshaping narratives around sustainability and climate action in Africa. This podcast is brought to you by the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre and is made at Semabox. Join us for this and other episodes as we talk to industry leaders, frontline communities, and the innovators who are accelerating the progress towards a greener, sustainable future. Welcome again to Sustainably Speaking, and as always, please like, share, and subscribe.
Very welcome to this particular episode. This is Sustainably Speaking Africa. And on this platform, on this podcast, we talk about sustainability, not just as an anecdote, not just as a buzzword, but in terms of driving narratives of change that then can take us to the future, the promised future of green, the promised future of sustainability, the promised future of sustainable development. With us today is a man that has been on the front line of this climate conversation for quite some time now. He has been on the forefront when it comes to partnership building, when it comes to communication, when it comes to curating a climate entrepreneurship ecosystem, not just in Kenya, but also in the continent. Ernest Chitechi, the Corporate Affairs Manager at the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tobias, for welcoming me to this platform, Sustainability Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And as you've said, sustainability is the engine for growth in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just coming to it, when some of us actually joined Kenya Climate Innovation Centre, it was out of a passion. Because at that time, there were not so many people who wanted to discuss matters sustainability. Even myself, I didn't have a background in environment, but I had a very strong background in supporting small and medium enterprise. So when I saw the opportunity to join this credible organization, I was like, let me be one of the pioneers. But just to go back, there was a lot of discussion when this issue of climate technology came up. During the COP in 2010, there was a lot of discussions that climate technology will be the best solution to tackle climate change challenges, particularly for Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So the World Bank and other partners decided that they will take up the opportunity. They went to different donors and they solicited for funds. So lucky enough, they got funding from the then UK Aid and the Danish government. And those two donors actually gave them a condition that you have to go and pilot this idea in Kenya. So that's how the concept of Climate Innovation Centre was birthed. And we were among the first people to join. So at that time, Africa was really feeling the brunt of climate change, erratic rains, long durations of droughts, shrinking forest because now people are encroaching onto forest land for agriculture, water rationing at that point because the water towers were being destroyed. And we came in and decided in a small way we'll start playing the role of advocacy, but advocacy using entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So we picked a number of enterprises, that time actually 65 in 2013, and we started working with those. One of the things that we realized then was that these enterprises face unique challenges. Because you'll find a typical enterprise would have almost similar challenges, but these have unique because it's a very niche area. So in terms of accessing finance, most institutions then didn't understand how to finance a climate enterprise. They couldn't evaluate the risk.
Yeah.
They couldn't evaluate profitability. And that was a really challenge. So we had to handhold them for a period through our incubation program and acceleration program, always designing new models for financing. And we started off with grants because we realized at that point we needed to catalyze the ecosystem. And grants that time was the most appropriate tool so that we could give them proof of concept grants, because majority of them were either at idea stage or prototype stage. So the proof of concept now enabled them to develop a minimum viable product. They were then able to take this product to the market, scale it, and start selling. Having proved that, the model actually proved very successful. And that's how we've been able now to follow on with different funders coming in. And until today, KCIC has now grown to be a Pan-African organization that now wants to catalyze climate enterprise ecosystem, not just in Kenya, but across Africa.
All right. Quite some details in as far as the history of the organization is concerned. But even before we dive deeper into that, I'm curious to understand. You mentioned that you did not foresee yourself being in the sustainability space. Take us back to where it all began, not for KCIC, but for Ernest Chitechi. How did you pivot into this sustainability space, into this social impact space?
Yes, so in my previous employment, I was actually working with small and medium enterprises. But these enterprises were mainly focused on developing product for export market. So we would work with them to develop products. We'll work with them to attend trade fairs. We'll help them structure their business model. And that's actually how I ended up in that particular sector. But then now, when I saw the opportunity for Kenya Climate Innovation Center, they're also looking for somebody who has good experience around working with SMEs. The only experience I didn't have was the climate one. But because of my background and my quick learning, they really needed somebody, one who could leverage partnerships, who could create awareness, who could also move around and open markets, who could work with policymakers. And having worked with a government institution then, it gave me an edge. Because during my work, I would actually interact with these policymakers. I was good in outreach, and that's how it all started. But also within that time, I started doing personal reading, personal capacity development on matters of sustainability. So that's how the journey actually began.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you've talked about business incubation earlier. You've talked about the enterprises that KCIC started supporting. But even before we get to that, there's a huge number of people out there who believe that this whole climate conversation is neither here nor there, that it's all a hoax. But you're talking about climate entrepreneurship, you're talking about ventures, you're talking about SMEs. Break that down for us.
Yes, the narrative about climate being a hoax has been around for some time. But I can just take you back, let's say, in the last 15 years. In the last 15 years, for example, in Kenya, we used to have a very predictable rain pattern. But right now, if you ask any farmer, he may not tell you when they expect to plant. And that just demonstrates to you that climate change is real. Because by then, we knew, even where I come from, that January, February is a dry season, and that's the time most farmers would prepare their farms. And come end of February, beginning March, for sure they will plant. But that doesn't happen anymore. We've seen in the last 5 years the increased drought that Kenya has experienced, one of the worst actually. So compare that with what used to be there previously. Yes, I know we used to have some droughts, in particular Sako, but this was more extended. That also just demonstrates to you the effects of climate change. Right now, if you look at our lakes in the Rift Valley, they are now bursting their banks. What has changed? So it means something is happening that is related to climate change. We are also experiencing some pests here and there that traditionally never used to affect most of our crops. And some of these are just demonstration that actually climate change is happening. And even if you look at what scientists have documented for the past 40 years, we've consistently seen increased temperatures in our atmosphere. So that also just shows you that it's not just rhetoric that we are talking about, but it's a threat that is there. And for sure, we need to arrest it before it becomes catastrophic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, most of what you've said is actually facts that anyone should be able to see. Anyone should be able to see that a couple of years back, they were getting better yields than they're getting it today, or last year when we had the prolonged drought and then followed by lots of floods. But still, people do not believe, even those who are mostly affected by climate change. Where do you think that mismatch is? What is the gap in the messaging or in the communication around matters sustainability or climate change, for that matter?
In my own opinion, I think as experts, most of the time we've been talking to ourselves. So if you talk to any person within that ecosystem, they clearly understand what is happening around climate change. But if you go and ask any person on the street, their understanding of climate change is totally different. So I think the mismatch has been the way matter climate change has been communicated. And also people understanding how do they as individual contribute to this aspect and what can they do to maybe abate the effects of climate change. So taking just a good example, I know all of us, sometimes you're feeling thirsty, you go to a shop, buy water, drink, and you just throw the bottle. You don't want to know where that bottle will end. Of course, it will go into our rivers and eventually it will end up in our oceans, actually impacting on our environment. Same way, look at Nairobi River. Nairobi River, as we speak now, is actually polluted. Why? Because of all human activities. And actually climate change is contributed by our own activities. It's not something that just happened out of nowhere. Because one, we are using resources from the environment with a linear model where you remove, use, and dispose. And even if when we are doing our production, sometimes we are not looking at how safe and clean some of our processes are. So either I'm consuming too much energy, so that means that the source that is generating that energy have to use a lot. And if maybe a manufacturer, then that also enhances emissions that I'm putting into the atmosphere. So most of our activities, whether it is farming, you realize some farmers now even have invaded riparian areas, and that has also contributed to a lot of siltation within our ecosystems. So most of these human activities is actually what has contributed to climate change. And the narrative, I think, that we need now to move forward is me, for example, as Ernest, what actions am I doing that are then contributing to climate change, and how is it affecting me? I think if we try that particular narrative, then in a simple way, people will start understanding why and what is this climate change. Otherwise, it remains a buzzword that is spoken in conferences, in big forums like COP, but it's not trickling down to the people on the grassroots who actually then contribute towards it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are those that have argued that Africa is barely that big an emitter when it comes to carbon emissions, and that the global north and the developed countries should not, shove mitigation down our throats, that we should have our own turn to sort of also pollute, if I can call it that, and industrialize. What would be your take on that?
My take would be, yes, Africa's contribution towards carbon emission is actually very, very minimal. On the flip side, we actually feel the impact more than more compared to the developed country. And even if we argue that we continue with the business as usual model, it also comes with its own consequences. So for me, I still would advocate for a development pathway that is backed by sustainability. So that way it doesn't now take us through the journey where some of these countries have gone to, because yes, they polluted, then they industrialized, but they're also feeling the effects of that. And it takes a lot of resources to correct what you could actually correct from beginning. So I think for Africa, my proposition would be that yes, let's develop, but let's take a sustainability pathway. It will not cost us much to rectify anything, because every step that we are taking, we are considering sustainability and how we can also maintain our environment as we abstract these resources from the environment.
Okay, fair enough. And that is the context in which KCIC exists, and it is the same context and thought process through which it was established.
Yes.
You talked about addressing that challenge at the intersection of innovation and entrepreneurship. 13 years on, what has that journey taught you as far as the possibilities that are there within this space?
When we started, we had a big consultation with different stakeholders. And we asked them, like, for example, which sectors we should focus on. And that actually informed some of the key sectors that currently KCIC is focusing on. Considering that Kenya is actually an agriculture country, and agriculture being one of the biggest emitters, because of use of land, the livestock, the emissions, and all that, I think there's still a lot of opportunity across many sectors. So, for example, Kenya, we are very blessed with a lot of natural energy, whether it is the sun, whether it is our rivers, we have geothermal, we have good wind, and all this can actually be harvested to produce enough energy that we need for our own industrialization. So as a country, actually, we can actually go green if we so wish, without necessarily polluting our environment. And with that, then we could also move now into our agriculture. How do we then enhance productivity based on the land that is currently there? And we've seen a lot of opportunity there. There are people now who are actually doing regenerative agriculture, producing organic fertilizer, developing early maturing seeds, drought-tolerant crops, and all this can actually contribute towards sustainability. And that is the pathway that we go. Kenya as a country, we have a very youthful population. Almost 70% of those people are young people. And they're always looking for opportunities, whether it is jobs, entrepreneurship. And we believe a green growth pathway will unveil those opportunities to them.
Okay. On that very note, the youth potential, and this is something that has been mentioned over and over again, the average age in Africa, in Kenya, and all that. What have you seen from working with some of these youths and also women-led ventures across the 13 years of KCIC's existence?
What we've seen is that our youth are very, very innovative. They're actually the ones which are coming up with most of these solutions. What they've been lacking is a supportive ecosystem, because they just need somebody who could actually believe in their idea, work with them the journey, and support them to translate that idea into a business. And if we do that, then you realize that we'll have a number of ventures that are being developed by young people that will then end up developing a number of employing a lot of other young people in this country. Women in particular have also faced their own challenges, particularly on access to productive resources. And through one of our programs, we've seen that if women are supported, they're actually the bedrock of the family economy, because the income that they will get will one way or another be able to empower the family economically. So if in a way we can find ways to empower these women, then we will be empowering actually the entire community.
All right. 13 years at KCIC now. This is the 13th year.
Yeah.
This journey and this mission must be personal. Yeah. What has kept you going? What has been the drive to keep working at it in terms of addressing this existential threat that is climate change?
So when we started KCIC, it was initially just as a project. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I was convinced with myself was that this institution should become more sustainable, mm-hmm. outlive my great-great-grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And my vision is that by the time I exit KCIC, it should be an organization that is able to stand on its feet. It should be an organization that has supported Kenya achieve its green growth agenda. It should be an organization that has supported the development of a good ecosystem where both business and government actually exist in harmony. We've achieved a number of milestones around that, trying to build a stable organization where we are. We've also developed an institution that is able now to support Kenya in terms of its green growth agenda. But then we need to move further than that and see what are the other innovative ways that this institution can be more sustainable. Mm-hmm. Also look at other ways in how many people can actually now access the services that are being offered by this institution. And that will mean working with different partners so that you're able to reach the last mile mm-hmm. in whichever, whether it's in Kenya or moving Africa, in the last village that actually they would feel the effect of this particular organization.
Okay. Yeah. Why is the journey so personal to you? What impact do you hope to see? And what is this that at a personal level gives you that drive to sort of align the goal of the organization with the personal purpose?
Personally, I look at my own background. Mm-hmm. I was brought up in a village mm-hmm. where if I go back then, I'm wondering even how I ended up at KCIC. So because I was born in a village, went through a village school, mm-hmm. I was among the very few actually who were able then to qualify and join a boarding school. Yeah. So when I went to the boarding school and I was telling people the first time I'm wearing shoes, mm-hmm. Is when I joined boarding school. Most of them, I currently don't believe that. But that was the journey. Mm-hmm. But see, through that, I realized that there are many other young people like myself mm-hmm. who may not have that opportunity. Yeah. But at least I'm lucky now I have an opportunity. And actually by just reaching them and showing them that there are these opportunities, then it will shorten their learning curve and it will not be as long as what personally I went through. Mm-hmm. And for me, that is the driving force, that I would not want to see young people in villages who always are begging for money, but I want to see them engaged in something that is economically productive and they're able to earn their own money and support other young people through the same path. And this journey could actually be through the path of climate entrepreneurship, because we have a lot of opportunities in our villages, and every day you walk there, you see an opportunity, and you'd always wish that all these young people could actually see and be supported.
Wow! And speaking on the same, what examples come to mind from the context of impact? What examples of climate entrepreneurs come to mind? Young, old, or whatever demographic that have gone through KCIC that sort of epitomizes what you've just said?
There are quite a number actually. Looking at it, just based on the location of where they are. If you look at, for example, renewable energy. We have companies that have gone through KCIC, for example, Lean Energy, mm-hmm. that is currently one of the leading...
That is Lean Energy?
Yeah, Lean Energy. Uh-huh. That is currently producing enough briquettes mm-hmm. that can actually support a number of industries in Kenya. Mm-hmm. And it started off small. Yeah. They've grown. Actually, I think their turnover is way bigger than KCIC. That's just one example. If you look at Mr. B, mm-hmm. And actually, Mr. B was my classmate in campus.
Oh.
Yes, so he has built an enterprise around concrete hubs. And see, he saw a need where the honey badger became a big problem to guys want to keep
the
honey.
beekeepers,
The beekeepers. And he came with that solution. He's also doing quite well in that venture. We also supported some two ladies who came to us. They're actually in the development world. And they came to us with a very brilliant idea of working with farmers and helping them with macadamia. They're also doing quite well. So there are over 3,500 enterprises outside there that actually passed through KCIC. And I'm sure if you go and talk to any enterprise in climate entrepreneurship, majority of them will actually tell you in one way they benefited from what KCIC has done.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, KCIC, 13 years is a long time. And obviously, the organization is one of the pioneers in this space of climate entrepreneurship and sustainability conversation. There must have been some missteps, false steps, so to speak, to get to a point where you are talking about 3,500 enterprises supported. What are some of those challenges that then shaped the organization that now we see having supported all these number of enterprises? And what are some of the lessons that, those challenges brought in shaping the organization?
I think one of the bigger challenge we faced then was which model of business incubation is ideal for climate entrepreneurship. And I think we asked ourselves those questions early enough, and we had a model, yes, developed, tested, but lucky enough, the World Bank supported us to review our model and see how do we make it unique. And that model then combined technical support with some level of financing. Because in Kenya, you'll find with the over 200 incubators, majority of them actually focus on just provision of technical support. But you realize these enterprises need different financing instruments depending on the stage where they are. So if those instruments are not available, then you'll find, in as much as I may give you technical support, you may not then fully or commercialize faster at a faster rate compared to somebody who got some level of financing when they are going through the incubation or acceleration. Also, the other challenge has been around mainly dependency on donor, because as an institution, we don't generate internally revenues. But we're also now looking at how do we ensure that we can generate sufficient revenue to run some of our programs, because now the development world is changing, donor funding is shrinking. So as an organization, we need to look at what are the other pathways that then would make you become more sustainable rather than just depending on development financing. Also, the other challenge that we've seen is because of the model that we've developed, majority of the ecosystem players, we may not have adequate, well-trained personnel. So you'll find some of them actually come to KCIC. After some point, they leave because the other ecosystem players who need that. So working maybe with the institution of higher learning, it may be good to come up with a curriculum that then will help Kenya now develop appropriate skills, particularly for people who can run incubation and the likes.
Interesting that you mentioned challenges like, shrinking funding, all this in the development sector and all that. And yet, KCIC just this year made a decision to go Pan-African, going big in despite some of these challenges. What is the thought process behind that? And you mentioned pathways for sustainability and all that. What are some of these pathways and the next horizons that the organization is looking at?
You see that as an organization that has worked with development partners, we are also studying how development funding is evolving. So you'll see that currently most development partners are looking at multi-country projects. So as an organization, then it calls us also to pivot our approach and see how can we tap to now available opportunities. And that was one of the reasons that informed our shift to become more Pan-African, so that we are able then also do multi-country projects. But having said that, we are also looking at other ways that we can maintain ourselves, and like we've just launched the Africa Investment Platform that then will have a revolving fund in it, an ecosystem building framework within it. And these are just some of the things that we are doing to enhance sustainability within the sector, because we believe a stronger ecosystem, not just KCIC, will actually still attract a lot of funding, whether it's from development partners, private companies, philanthropies. And because even as the development shrinks, funding shrinks, we are looking at more now private funds coming in. And this is what, as an organization, now we are tapping into.
Oh, all right. So it's a data-informed decision, not just you didn't just wake up and decide, let's go Pan-African.
Yes, exactly.
13 years have elapsed. What is your vision for the next 13 years for KCIC? You mentioned that your hope was to help build an organization that would outlive your great-great-grandchildren. But just for the next 13 years, what is your vision for the organization and for the ecosystem, especially that now that KCIC is operating at an ecosystem level across the continent?
One of the visions that I have now is to see how we can actually support KCIC to become a great partner on knowledge. Because the knowledge that we've acquired over the past 13 years is enormous. So, and we want to continue supporting the ecosystem with availing up-to-date information. So we are looking at a very strong research and knowledge management component that then would be able to authoritatively inform whether it is policy, whether it is awareness, whether it is donor funding mechanism. All this should be backed by data and knowledge. So that's the organization that we want to build, so that as we support enterprise, if you are telling them now focus on regenerative agriculture, for example, what is informing that particular decision? If we are telling you now renewable are moving, for example, focus on e-mobility, why are we moving to e-mobility? So this is the knowledge that we want to build, not just for KCIC, but for the entire ecosystem, and they could all actually tap into this knowledge, because where we are going now, we are moving now to more of a knowledge economy, and that's where we want to see KCIC play.
So evidence-informed decision-making and not just winging it.
Yes, exactly.
Especially since you'd be winging with people's livelihoods and, and sources of income. All right. When we started this conversation, we mentioned about narratives that have been disseminated around climate change. You talked about the opportunity within the climate space, and you talked about what you see in the continent. As we conclude this conversation, what are some of the key priorities that you think should be at the top of people's minds in this particular space right now, in this moment?
I think one of the key priority will be appropriate policies. One that supports more investment into the sector, because we still feel, in as much as Kenya has quite very good policy, there are still gaps. And those gaps need to be closed, so that at an entrepreneurship level, these enterprises can operate without major hindrances. The same applies to even the investor, providers of capital. They should be able then to invest in this organization and be able at the end of the day see some returns. And this can only happen if we have good policies in place that both protect the lender and the borrower, or the investor and the beneficiary. So that is one aspect that would want to see. Would also want to see a lot of now support from African governments themselves. They should be able then be able to allocate some resources, be strategic enough and say 2%, 5%, 1% of our GDP will go towards climate entrepreneurship, because it's real. And since donor development is shrinking, as I said earlier, there should be other mechanisms of funding some of this initiative, and government plays a bigger role, particularly in catalyzing the ecosystem, because so long as they are leading, then the private sector will follow. Because then otherwise you end up lagging behind. Then also looking at what are some of the new emerging opportunities. For now, we are seeing a lot of opportunities still in agriculture. We are seeing opportunities in transport, around e-mobility, how we could also play around the blue economy. Kenya has a lot of blue economy resources. And all this, then we need to do a bit of research and see how do they spur economy and create jobs for the young population.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the insights and for the knowledge and for unpacking this sector that for far too long people have deemed difficult, with a lot of buzzwords and jargon. So we are talking about, you've mentioned policy incentives, you've mentioned more government involvement, you've mentioned the fact that there is a huge opportunity within this space, particularly for youth, to innovate, to enterprise, and all that. And if you're listening to this podcast, or if you are viewing this particular episode, this is a conversation that involves each and every person. So feel free to share your own perspectives from your own region, from your own background, because only that then we can get some of these solutions that you're talking about. Thank you so much. We've been with Ernest Chitechi, the Corporate Services Manager at the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sustainably Speaking Africa. See you next time.